Greetings Graviteam Tactics Mius front players to my Stepanovka campaign as a German player, turn 11, which represents 19th July 1943 at 1000 hours. The tactical map shows that we are north of Stepanovka once again, and we have two key points, the gully and Stepanovka itself, which has the large amount of points, and one Soviet key point which is located in the north. We have scheduled artillery that can only be used in the deployment phase. And interestingly, we only have smoke and incendiary rounds. The operational map indicates we're doing reasonably well, given we're 136 points against the Soviets 15, so we seem to have this campaign well in hand at this stage. In this scenario, the Soviets are once again trying to make a push for Stepanovka, but it would seem at first blush that we have a good array of forces levelled against them. As usual, when you jump into a map, orient it to the north, and that helps you keep your bearings during the upcoming battle. First thing I decided to do was the scheduled artillery, and from previous battles on this map there's an area just to the north of this treed area which has it's like a bit of a gully area where any tanks can make a pretty safe crossing of that gully area, so that's where I decided to put my smoke and incendiary rounds. After that I made some minor adjustments, but by and large the units were within 100 metres of their original deployment by the AI. Your first move, whether on defence or offence, should be to send out the initial patrols just to try and contact the enemy at the furthest distance from your lines if you're in defence, and if you're in offence, of course, you want to hide the bulk of your attacking force, so make contact with the smallest force possible. Such is the success of the campaign to date that I'm finding at the start of each battle that I generally have a richness of resources. first two vehicles from my armoured column of Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs has safely negotiated that first bit of open terrain. So now I'm just getting the other vehicles out of this bushy terrain and trying to deploy them in usable firing positions on the map. So far I've found that with vehicles it's always best to try and move them by road. Even if it's a dirt track, they just seem to get there with the least amount of troubles, although this guy here seems to be lost. But generally speaking, when I try and employ vehicles of any type, I try and use the roads if they're available. Su-152s trundling down the hill show just how vulnerable these vehicles are when they're on the move. With self-propelled vehicles versus turreted vehicles, like the Marder versus the T-34 for instance, you have to be very careful on how you employ these vehicles. The Marder is very good against the T-34 when it is stationary and the T-34 is moving, but if it is moving and a T-34 or a turreted vehicle is stationary, it really is easy meat against those vehicles. In fact, any self-propelled gun is. So, if you're new to this type of gaming, I would suggest the following rule of thumb for self-propelled gun engagement might keep you out of trouble. The preferred position for the self-propelled gun is for it to be stationary and for its opponent to be moving. Now, other than that, you only try and use your self-propelled gun where it has an advantage in its position compared to the tank. And in other areas, if you're moving, just avoid the enemy line of fire altogether. You know, go around the back of a hill, do whatever you can to keep out of its line of fire, because while your self-propelled gun is moving, it really is vulnerable because it just cannot maneuver like a tank with its body and the turret. The turret's just going to be too big for you, and the tank will outgun you eventually. The tanks just seem to have better optics, better operation, which means that they're a high kill probability. The area we're looking at now is where the Su-152s are, and it's very easy when playing these games to get sucked into the vortex where you have all your vehicles going to where the most action is. But any sports watchers out there will know one of the tactics is to make the playing field bigger. So in this case, when I was deploying the armoured vehicles, my 3s and 4s earlier, I was putting some vehicles to support that attack on the Su-152s, but I was also putting other vehicles out to the left, once again with that concept of making the battlefield larger. So if you think you have an advantage in numerically, it's to your advantage to spread the opposition out. With vehicles, don't forget the Y command or withdraw command. It can be very useful. Sometimes it's good to have your front facing the enemy while you perhaps withdraw or go backwards up a hill trying to get a better line of sight on the enemy. With the excitement of the Su-152 attack over and done with, it was a fairly straightforward task of moving my armoured units to the left and moving up the perimeter there and taking the key point, which is up in that tree line. In the tree line along that road on the east side of the map, there was quite a few anti-tank guns, but I was able to quell them with machine gun fire and that sort of thing, so I ended up taking that key point quite easily. There was only one other T-34 on the map which we managed to damage, and he couldn't get out of that forest area, in fact just to the south of the red and blue cross on the map. So opposition was fairly light from here on in. ended up getting a minor victory in this scenario, and I thought with the overwhelming superiority of our forces at this stage, I might move on to a different campaign next time. I bought a few modules at the last Steam sale, so I'll pick one of those. I'll change some of the levels up from normal and see if we can get a more competitive game out of the AI. But I think normal is a good area to start to learn the game and get a feel for it. It'll give you a good challenge initially, and once you've got the basic movements out of the way, you can then play with the options, and I'll have a look at those in the next video.